Be me. 2005. 11 years old and living in Florida, about 45 minutes from Fort Lauderdale. Be a Friday night with my friend Danny. We bike over to our buddy Dave's house to watch WWE SmackDown like we always did. Show ends at 10 p.m. and we're just chilling playing Xbox that night. Dave's house is on the farther end of town, nothing after the backyard but wetland and woods. Approximately 2 in the morning, we're still awake but I go to kitchen to grab a Coke. Remember Dave's mom is autistic about the back porch light being on for some reason I never understood. Flick it on. Suddenly see this roughly 6 feet 6 inches figure with reddish fur as soon as it comes on in the backyard. Scream holy shit at the top of my lungs. See this thing run right off into the distance and barrel back into the living room. Friends rag on me and call me a pussy the rest of the night because after telling them why I was so scared. 17. Worked the graveyard shift at McDonald's from midnight to 6 a.m. in the summer. It's mostly dead around this time and usually the second shift people already did most of the cleanup. This time of night we usually only sold nuggets, burgers, and drinks to the late night customers. Lobby closes though until 6 a.m., or my store did at least. To know if every store did. Be shooting the shit with my shift manager Josh. Josh is a total bro, few years older and generally didn't give a fuck about most things. He stops and asks, hey Anon, didn't Donna leave like an hour ago? I ask him why. Says he thought he saw someone out of the corner of his eye in the dish pit that's right next to the back booth. Tell him that yeah, she did, I saw her leave. For context, Donna was this older lady who worked late night. She was usually off at midnight and out of the store by 12:10. Look over to the dish pit, hear what sounds like someone's walking around there. Me and Josh book it for their and back booth. Nobody. Our back booth only leads one other place and that's the crew room. Nobody there. From then on we were both convinced the store was haunted. Be living in pretty rural area of New England at the time. Joyriding in my coworker/buddy's truck. It's about 11 to 11:30 when we're about 10 minutes from our neighboring town, having cruised around there most of the day. We pull over because my buddy has to piss. We pull into the dirt trail so he can hop out, pee and get back in. When we're pulling out suddenly this loud thumping like noise can be heard. Suddenly we both see this huge, tall thing run fast across the trail and be gone as fast. Be 9 years old. Visiting my dad's house on the weekend in middle of nowhere town Nebraska. His house is an L-shaped single-story home. Bedrooms down the long hallway, living room, and kitchen at the other end. My room is at the end of the hallway, my dad's is across it. It's 2 p.m, I am bored of playing banjo and kazooie. Open my door to go see what my dad is doing in his room, he is taking a nap. Decide to go get a snack and run down the hallway towards the kitchen looking down at my feet as I run. Make it like 10 feet before I look up. Heart stops, my body freezes, hair is standing on its ends, a fear unlike anything I have experienced rushes through my body. I see a slender green face looking at me with one long black eye, its long fingers wrapped around the corner. Same sight as from communion. A second later it disappears around the corner towards the kitchen on the right. After the fear washes over I immediately run the next 15 feet down the hall and turn. Absolutely nothing. I ran back to my room and only came out when my dad woke up. I hadn't seen communion until college and when that scene happened I nearly shit my pants reliving that memory. Never seen it since. My son, junior in high school at the time, was visiting his buddy on the outskirts of town. They own a farm, quasi-rural part of Utah. It was about 9:30 to 10 p.m. Something was making noise outside and the dad was afraid a skunk or something was messing with his chickens. He grabs a flashlight and a shotgun and heads out. After the dad exited the house, my son and his buddy decided to follow him. A barn was about 200 feet away and the dad was beelining through a field towards it. Son and friend were trailing about 100 feet behind. The dad enters the cabin. Son and friend are trudging through the field to get closer. Next thing my son hears is a scream escape the barn and the shotgun blast. The dad comes barreling out of the barn, sees my son and his kid, and screams for them to run back into the house. They all get in the house and the dad is shaken up. He calls 911 and explains he needs cops to check the barn. The dad sat shaking at the dinner table and my son and his friend sat down and asked what happened. The dad said when he got into the barn, something was just off and then a smell hit him, but he kept moving toward the back. This barn had rafters and holding pens for animals on either side. Well, he is scanning with the flashlight and he then shined the light towards the back and he saw it. This lengthy white man or creature had its back to him, its skin was ash white and he knew it was off because he said a long white arm was reached up and hanging over one of the rafters, it was leaning forward and the head was hanging down. But it's when it cocked its head and twisted like an owl to face him straight on, looking at him from below the armpit on an elongated neck that he freaked out and fired. During the story he was checking the windows as they waited for the cops. Cops didn't show. My son said that unmarked black vans appeared, a helicopter crested the ridge and landed in the field. Military-geared men exited the vans. Another van had men in hazmat suits escorted by the military-geared men towards the barn. The thing, creature, man, had escaped out of the back. There was literal white goo that was on parts of the barn where the shot caused spatter. The helicopter and vans were on premise for about an hour scouring the area. No police arrived the entire time. After they left, my son and his friend gathered some courage and went until the barn and that's when they saw the white goo. My son was going to stay the night, but the entire thing freaked him out and he didn't like the idea of being in the countryside with that thing running around. My son said the rafters to the barn were like 12 feet high and the way the dad described it, it was hunched over and an arm dangled down over the rafter above, so it was no small thing. Now if it was blasted by a gun, you'd think the cops would look into it. Nothing. The dad was questioned, but that was it. No repercussions for shooting someone, regardless it being Utah and such. Questions or a form or something would be filled out, I'd think, but what do I know? The hazmat-suited guys had collected something, my son thinks it was the white goo. Whatever it was, the powers that be had to have had this thing on their radar to have this type of a response in less than 30 minutes where this place was. My 2 cents, a DNA.U.M.B experiment escaped or was purposefully let loose in the wild and monitored to see what it does, but, again, what do I know? Working as a camp counselor for a scout camp few summers ago. Last week is a large canoe trip with all the kids. Our lead guide falls sick and has to go to the hospital. Instead of canceling the trip, all the counselors decide that we can hire a guide from the nearest town. Find a guy in town who was reluctant, but we managed to convince him by paying more than offered and threw in a 24-pack of beer. Day of the trip comes and he arrives with a rifle in tow. We try to convince him to leave it because we've got kids here and we don't want them scared as to why we need a gun. This is Canada, so guns aren't too common, especially with city kids. He says it's for defense, and how he knows this place better than us and it would be wise to have it in case. We've already paid him, he had already drank some of the beer, so we said fuck it, just have the gun out of sight from any of the kids. The canoe trip is fairly uneventful for the first 2 days. We are following the river and stopping at various areas along the way. Day 3 is really hot and the kids and counselors are tired earlier than anticipated. We decide to stop on a large island in the mid-afternoon and make plans to camp on it. When we get ashore we see some rock formations that look pre-arranged. Almost artistic in a crude sort of way. We unload the 6 canoes we have and set up camp. Some of the kids decide to wander into the forest and come back screaming. They've found bones all over the forest floor, scattered in all manner of places. The guide we hired looks nervous, steely eyes looking around, at the rocks and goes into the woods to see the bones. Couple other kids go on the other side of where he went in and find those hut sort of arrangements made out of branches, kind of like the ones homeless people will make in the woods. The guide comes out of the woods and finds us counselors. Tells us we shouldn't stay here and it's not safe. Ask why, but he won't divulge. Tell him it's too hot to pack everything back up and continue down the river, everyone is too tired. He warns us that this island belongs to someone or something and we shouldn't be here. We laugh it off because if it belongs to someone they'd surely be out and ready to talk to us to get off almost as soon as we arrived. We've been here for 2 hours and no one has approached. He looks at us with contempt and goes and lay down in his canoe. Few hours later, sunset and everyone is really relaxed. Some of the kids have decided to explore the island a bit more, others are swimming. The other counselors and I are looking over the map and planning for the next day. Realize the island we're on is huge and stretches on for a good several kilometers. We're going over this when we hear an ungodly scream from the forest. Like an animal, wet and visceral but different. Kids come screaming out of the forest, stammering that something is in there watching them and throwing stones at them. One of the kids threw a stone back and that's when the scream started. The guide hears this, runs up to us with his gun and motions all of us to get to the canoes. Another scream rips through the air. Guide yells at us to move now or face the consequences. He goes towards the forest. We all scramble to the canoes, trying to make sure all the kids are present. We wait as we see the guide go into the forest. It's quiet for I don't know how long. Suddenly, a shot reverberates throughout the area. Then another. Then the guide comes running full tilt out of the forest, screaming at us to go go go. We get in the canoes and wait for him to catch up before pushing off. As we start to paddle around to the side away from the shore, several rocks come flying out of the woods and land on the shore and into the water near us. We paddle hard to the other side of the river and find some sort of landing. We demand to know what the guide saw in those woods. Tells us it was someone's territory, just not a person's. Summer 2018. I'm deep sea fishing with my uncle because he hasn't got long to live at the time. Dude smoked like a chimney most of the time I'd known him and they found growths on his lungs. We're about 40 to 50 miles from the coast. We made a lengthy trip on a small boat he'd had since apparently 1986. Cast out a good distance from the boat, nothing, no clouds, no real choppy waters. Then we feel this object right below us collide, shakes the boat hard enough the cooler with beer and the bait cooler get knocked free and go overboard. My uncle starts screaming, what the fuck was that shit? Fucking hell. See this long, thick shape dart out, just barely visible underneath the water. It's just a long, shiny, dark shape. It disappears into the sea, we don't see it again. Uncle decides we're done because there's no use in being out there with no beer or bait. Tells me if we had either we'd wait to see it come back. Takes about an hour to get back to the docks and load the boat on the truck. My uncle asks me if I saw its head. I say no. Tells me that's good because he did and he was scared shitless by it, says it looked like a dinosaur mixed with the devil. Tell him all I saw was it being a thick, snake-like body. I guess he told one of his fishing buddies about it and they all only talk about what a great kill its head would make on a fireplace mantle. Look up various marine reptiles and aquatic dinosaurs but nothing really fit. This happened about 40 to 50 miles northwest off the coast of Maine. I still don't know what I saw. I have one but it happened 3 years ago. In 2016 I moved to southern Colorado with my father, mother, and brother. Dad always got into it with people in Denver. We used to live in Arizona in the city of Phoenix, screeching racism or pissing off the landlord. Once in a blue moon the landlords would force us out for no reason. It was hard to form attachments or graduate due to this. Around 2016 after the election was called for Trump we moved again. I was researching local legends after I finally graduated. One came across my screen that had my interest: a skinwalker, an evil creature said to shapeshift and do a lot more nasty shit. Around August, Dad's health started getting bad. There was a miasma in the air of the house, unknown noises and screams in the yard. We thought it was drug addicts. The night before he passed in October, it still haunts me. I slept with everything off for once, and well, I saw like those kinda eyes you would see reflecting off of a dog's eyes at night staring at me, in my own bedroom. I was frozen like I couldn't move. Then this demonic like growling started. After a few minutes I could move, but it got closer. My body was telling me don't move or you're bloody dead, so I had no choice. After an hour the eyes disappeared into the darkness, but the growl remained. After 2 more hours frozen in fear, I turned on the light, grabbed my pistol and searched the house. Our front door was smashed to bits and again the growling came back. Pistol aimed at the door, but once again frozen, but with my finger on the trigger. Felt like years passed by before it stopped. Contacted anyone until I found a local shaman. Said it was a skinwalker, not too happy with me. It wanted to show how easily it could get to me and my family if I didn't sod off and leave things be. 1 month later, my dad died. His last words to me was, "Don't let it back into your life, it's waiting." I feel watched whenever I tell this story. It still haunts me to this day. Update to my last personal skinwalker post: I was in a hurry and had to do some last minute editing, had to do some housework. I feel I should specify. The year first is 2021, around August, October. I get shaky telling the story, so forgive me if things do not line up. What I mean by the night before he died, it got mixed up as I was editing to meet the 2,000 character limit. It was 1 month before he died. We did a lot of moving due to his grifting and failing health. He died in October. As for the shaman, he blessed the house and did what he could to train me in preventing it from coming back again. That year was like crack for the skinwalker, as it was a very negative time in my life. Fears of being homeless and things going to hell helped draw it to me. I'm clarifying, so some are gonna say this fucker is pulling fake shit straight out of his ass, and that's fine. I don't expect to be believed here. But it did happen, so I will give a timestamp of the night that still haunts me. 10 p.m., looking at local dogman and skinwalker stories in southern Colorado. 11 p.m., played a bit of Warframe with friends trying to farm ash. Something felt off at around 11:45, called it an early night, didn't get the ash. 12 a.m., asleep. 1 a.m., I wake up to those eyes and unable to move. Its growling kicks in after 1:05 a.m. 2 a.m., able to move but eyes get closer and the growling gets louder. I refuse to move out of fear of death. 3 to 4 a.m., eyes remained on me. 3:35 a.m., the eyes disappear but the growling remained. 4 a.m., all growling ceases. I grab my gun and make for the front door. 4:30 a.m., find front door completely destroyed and the growling resumes. I aim and keep my gun aimed at where the door used to be. 5:30 a.m., all growling ceases, sun begins to rise. Mom is scared. Brother is terrified as he heard it all. Dad was wide-eyed when he saw the door. Dad's health went to shit fast after this. During the weeks leading up to his passing, met the shaman. Dad dies October 8th. B18. Go kayaking because this girl I was dating was into outdoors shit. We go to this rural area of Connecticut to get our rental kayaks. She chooses this waterway that leads up to Barn Island Wildlife Refuge. Just a relaxed afternoon as we make our way upriver to the refuge. About a good 100 yards in front of us we both notice this tall grass that's close to shore thrashing violently. We just watch while paddling past it, thinking maybe it's a snapping turtle or maybe something larger like a coyote. We have a big problem with coyotes in the rural areas of southern New England, so that's what made me think it's one of those. We see instead this massive black wolf instead jumping out into the water with a big ass base in its mouth. Big wolf, and I mean big, motherfucker had a head that could easily crush mine if it bit me. We see this thing seamlessly crawl onto the other end of the bank. Then we notice something about how it's eating, it's holding the base like it has hands. It's after that we're taken aback when this fucking thing stands up, upright and runs over a hill and out of our sight. Never told anyone since we're both flabbergasted by basically seeing a wolf man. Be me. Camping alone in the national forest on the WA/ID border. Spent a lot of time around here, very comfortable in the area. Way the fuck up a fire road, nobody around. Place I'm camping was well frequented a few months ago, know for a fact nobody's around anymore. Cook dinner in Cedar Grove, comfy but dark. Set up big tarp to sleep under. Open on one side, roomy, pretty much only good to keep the rain off me. Notice wind has stopped completely. It gets really quiet. Get bad feeling. That feeling. Nope. Pack shit up in the dark. Put fire out. Leave. Drive down mountain, gonna find a fire road and just camp there. Get creeping feeling that my fire isn't all the way out. People will know it was me if a fire starts. God damn it. Go back to meadow, bad feeling returns. Park, turn high beams on pointing into forest. Going through the woods. Reminds me of every UFO movie ever, trees are throwing weird shadows. Nerves are getting to me. Find fire spot, it's cold. Really unsettling feeling now. Notice metallic smell, kind of like copper and sulfur, but less of a smell and more like a gaseous feeling in my sinuses. Wind stops. Everything is completely silent. Look around. Trees look weird. Look at car. Looks like it's getting further away from me. Kind of like pickerel. But I'm standing still. And it's standing still. Nope. Sprint to car. Drive down mountain. Feel like a pussy, decide to sleep in car in the forest, a little closer to civilization. 4 am. Woken up to weird fucking vibration. There's nothing in my car that should be vibrating besides my phone which is in my hand. Nope. In and out of sleep for an hour, finally wake up, drive up mountain, drink coffee, and watch sunrise. Haven't camped there alone since. Same forest. Worked and lived in this forest on and off for a few years. Often I was the guy who was up driving at night or other retarded times. Would often work all day and then have to drive for parts or gas at a central location. Location was just inside the national forest, but on a road with some houses and cabins on it. Locals would put up signs saying Area 52, alien containment or shit to be funny. One local builds pickerel on his hill overlooking a turn in the road. Was always off-putting. First time by it, guy I'm driving up with says there are 7 friends on the hill. WTF. He explains that if you say it out loud there will always be 7 and they won't move. Ask what happens if you don't say it. Just say it every time dude. FFW a year or 2. Greater than 3 am. Coming back from supply place. Already hallucinating kinda bad, but roll down window to keep myself cold and alert. Work truck has shitty crank windows, having to fuck with it. Coming up on the turn. See movement out of peripheral. Lots of deer in the forest, sometimes moose. Can't risk smoking a deer at 2 am in the work truck. Whip head over, look, nothing there. Look back at top of hill. Get weird feeling. Didn't count, but there definitely aren't that many figures up there as usual. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bad feeling. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Drive a little, maybe I'm at a weird angle. Still 6. Oh fuck. One has longer arms than normal. And they're held up. Did it always have that? Thoroughly creeped out. Punch it down the hill through the woods. Keep getting glimpses of something off to my side, but when I turn my head I don't see anything. It feels like something's running parallel to me. On a dirt road, but still get up to 40 miles per hour. Sinking feeling in gut, still getting weird peripherals. Finally make it to a paved road. Punch it. Stop getting movement in peripherals once I hit a farm. Get back to camp. Check phone for pickerel I took a few weeks earlier. Don't sleep that night. Never forget to say the saying. Used to live in a house from 2005 to 2019 that was basically haunted. The house was made up of 3 floors, each one a separate apartment. While first floor would say they hear things, sometimes it was by and large the second and third floor apartments where activity was noticeable. Living on third floor, we would hear an unintelligible conversation down on the porch, almost always the same thing. 2 male voices would start normally before it erupts into a full argument that peaks then stops. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway and never pulling out or anyone getting out. The bathroom seemed to be where you could hear voices conversing in the closet beside the sink. Greater than 3-year-old cousin would talk to an imaginary girl named Cindy, whom she'd eventually become terrified of because of bad things Cindy wanted her to do. Second floor seemed to be where activity peaked, as the landlord really struggled to rent that one out for longer than 7 to 8 months at a time, with some exceptions. Ironically enough, when the second floor apartment was completely vacant, the activity died down considerably. I used to have a neighbor down there named Jed who, towards the end of his tenancy, slept outside the place because he didn't like anything about the apartment. He never elaborated, just said the place had too much creepy stuff happen for his liking. There was also a family whom lived there for a while because they had a Section 8 voucher the landlord readily accepted. The mother told my mom about things that happened down there, notably how some nights a shadowy man would come into her son's room and told them vile things, like how their parents will kill each other. I once experienced a voice on a baby monitor when helping my mom babysit our neighbor's youngest kids. The voice sounded like the Wicked Witch after a meth binge and smoking 10 packs of cigarettes a day for 50 years, saying, "You little bitch, I'll kill you." Towards the infant daughter. An afternoon of winter 2010. Innawoods, when suddenly everything goes quiet. Whispers break the silence, then a howl echoes throughout the valley. A strong wind starts blowing. Feels like it's actually charging at me like some mad animal. Grass rustling like crazy. Wind grows so intense I have to protect my face with my forearms. As suddenly as it came, the wind ceases and silence takes over the forest again. Looking around, still astonished by what just happened, when I spot a ball of light flying down the mountain to my left. It emanates light, but doesn't look like it's made of fire. It's pure white in color and leaves a faint trail as it floats toward me. It's also distinctively solid as it zigzags through the trunks. Stops a few feet away from me. Can now hear a low-pitch hum and constant sizzling coming from it. Initially just curious, I'm now overtaken by dread. Feel like this thing is waiting to jump at me. Even if I think of escaping, persuading my body to move is another matter entirely. Just close my eyes and start reciting Psalm 23:4. Put my heart at peace with dying, hoping to open my eyes to any sight but that thing. Gone. The ball of light has disappeared completely. At first I suspect it's all a dream, since I don't feel that sense of fear anymore either. Just set to walk back to my house, but then I subconsciously acknowledge the reality of the situation and begin to bolt away. I've got an orb story. August 2019. Going to airport, catch train to airport early at 7 a.m. Looking out over the rail yard, listening to podcast. Across the way there's some scaffolding. Notice what looks like a plastic bag drifting down from above the scaffolding. This was a Sunday, so no construction workers, but cast it off as just a bag. Nothing else to do, so keep watching it. As it gets closer to the ground level it starts folding in on itself. Before it gets to the bottom floor it shifts its trajectory to going left along the scaffolding while keeping a steady pace, still folding in on itself. WTF? It gets to the end of the scaffolding and goes back the way it came, literally stops for a second as if it turned around. Keep watching as it retraces its path back up from the area and into the sky and drifts behind a skyscraper. The second I lose sight of it, I see a second one appear further in the sky. Second one drifts, still doing that folding floating thing, then in a flash of light like a sparkler it disappeared in the bright blue sky. B22. Greater than 1996. Living in Georgia, late at night. Me and my stoner buddy Paul are at 7-11, getting snacks for when we get lit up later that night. Decide we're gonna get gas because the tank was getting a bit low anyway. As I'm pumping the car, I look across the road where there's this field. It's about maybe 200 yards before you get to the tree line. Start seeing there's some movement out there. This is about 6:30 p.m. in July, so there's still some daylight and easy to make out the details of this tree line. Start seeing that there's this tall figure. It stops, just standing there for about 10-12 seconds. When I say this fucker is tall, I mean it had to be 7 feet or over. Figure turns around and walks back off into the woods. Greater than 2013. General occult research leads my crazy/horny ass onto succubi and incubi. Learn a few of the horribly inaccurate myths surrounding Lilith. Call out to her. T. Nephilim, young and weak, at least, compared to the mother at that time. Around the time of our first fuck together, a great horned owl comes to me and silently swoops down, perching on a tree branch directly opposite of myself at my smoking spot on the edge of my house. Lilith popped into the world of the living and shape-shifted just to check in on me. Love you, goddess. Another story. Meditating one late Saturday morning. Projecting into random designations of the spirit world, subsequently exploring wherever I end up. Long story short, helped out a small tribe of Kitsune out of a fucked up dilemma. Roughly about 2 months later, a wild vixen begins strolling along the middle of the road, through the parking lot of the office building across the street, around 2 a.m. while I'm wide awake, gaming, smoking cigs out of my bedroom window and contemplating life going forward. Same vixen arrives from the same direction early morning about a week later, once again smoking out of the same window while reflecting, staring out into the road outside. This time, she darts right up the driveway and straight for me. My bedroom is on the second story, about 35 feet up. Staring down at this happy vixen, tongue flopping out like an excited puppy as she trots excitedly in place directly beneath my window before dipping off again on her way. Incredibly bemused. JPG. To this day, the particular Kitsune has never identified herself to me, only that she shape-shifted and ran through my neighborhood to pay me a visit in flesh. She wasn't from the particular tribe, but she was definitely paying one entity thanks from another. Be me around 2007. Visiting some relatives with my mom. Cousins, aunt, and uncle all live out in the country between Ohio and Pennsylvania. It's getting late into the night and me and my cousins are doing bumpkin stuff like shooting at raccoons with BB guns. We're walking around the woods, looking for coons to shoot at, aiming flashlights. Suddenly my cousin Eric says he hears some noise in some bushes. Shine our flashlight when we see this giant fox head. Have seen foxes before, I know how big they're supposed to be. This is twice the size a fox should be. It doesn't do anything but stare at us until it disappears back into the bushes and runs off. We're not scared, more confused by the whole thing. Be me, about a year ago. Move out of my roommate's place because one of them flies off the handle at the smallest thing, and arguing with him is a no-win situation where even trying to defuse the situation ends in screaming and yelling louder. Also like talking about how much he suffers daily, and everyone abandons him anyway. Gee, I wonder why. Also had a habit of calling everyone else a narcissist. Spend a few nights living out of my car, not the worst thing ever but mildly uncomfortable. Usually find parking lots to pull into and not get noticed by cops. Find a post office parking lot to pull into, sleep a few hours before going to the nearby YMCA to shower before work. Not able to really sleep all that much when I see something in the sky. Initially think nothing of it since the city airport is about 6 miles north. But I can make out it's larger than an average plane. Craft is huge, cigar-shaped thing with a large red light at the center. It's just gliding slowly, up in the sky. Craft suddenly has its light turn white, and I get this immediate bad feeling. I peel off, break speeding laws, and don't stop till I'm 6 hours away and several towns over. One time when I was 6 or 7 I was having a midday nap and I woke up but was scared to open my eyes for some reason. When I finally forced myself to open them I was like an inch from the ceiling and fell into my bed. Told my mom about this recently and she said that happened to her one time when she was young too. Another time not long after that I was home after school just with my brother and heard noises in the kitchen, went in and the computer chair was spinning around pretty quickly and rolling around the room. Also occasionally have dreams that actually happen, not deja vu but like have a dream and it literally happens a couple months later but it's always mundane things like a conversation or a room. Not really that spooky, I guess, but from last night. Be me, anon with GF. She stays at my place. It's an apartment with 3 rooms next to each other, short hallway that leads to open living room with kitchen plus bathroom on the other side. We lay on the bed just fooling around, wrestling for a space. Suddenly hear footsteps inside of room. WTF.jpg. GF hears it too. Decide to jet into the middle room, my sleeping room. Side note, not the first time it happened, but not literally close to us. We lay on my bed trying to sleep. Still hearing footsteps around the house, not in my room. Suddenly overwhelmed by a feeling of sheer dread, almost panic for me and GF. She says we need to burn some dried up sage and light a candle. We calmed a bit but noises are still heard. And it's been going for 3 days and previously 2 sometimes. Am I getting bamboozled by some poltergeist? Is it someone from my family visiting me? Mom died 9 years ago plus grandmother and uncle in a span of last 3 years, had a prophetic dream about uncle dying too. While at it lemme post the whole experience about uncle. Have an annual mass every anniversary of mom's death. He's always present, it was his sister after all. Not present during the recent one. Known to have problems with alcohol. I think he just got drunk. Try to call him. Mute phone. Either that or he left for some extra job to one of his friends so he can have more shekels for alcohol. Forget about him and go about your own business. FF like a week, going to bed. Having a weird dream where I am at my uncle's place. I see him sleeping on the bed while TV plays in the background. No, not sleeping, he's fucking dead. Wake up in the morning, forgetting the dream. A day or 2 passes. At work. Sis calls. Anon, uncle's dead. Turned out his drinking buddies were also worried he's not appearing at the bar. One of the dudes decided to take a trip to his place. He found him dead sitting in a chair, corpse was rotten, must have been there for over a week, add high humidity and temperature at his place, not a pleasant view, per cops and mortuary workers. Am I a fucking medium or my uncle reached out to me in his last moments? I have that dream thing too, always simple stuff too. The last one I remember was a piece of paper burning in a specific way in a bonfire me and my buddies had, and it did happen exactly how I dreamed it. Anyways, got a couple of stories. Be me, UK fag living in Germany with GF. Winter 23, walking my dog in forest at like 6 p.m. so sun has already set. Come to this clearing with a bench for hikers and a road to some farmhouses. See this candle light flickering like 50 m in the distance. Was windy and cold as shit, no one except me dumb enough to walk their dog. Turn off flashlight cause kinda intrigued.jpg. Candlelight comes to about 40 m then goes back to original distance. Happens a few times like it was beckoning me to follow. Shit was hovering or something, not like someone was holding it and walking back and forth. Obviously not gonna follow that shit. Walk along my usual route, still have light in sight. Light floats up into deeper woods. I have that dream thing too, always simple stuff too. The last one I remember was a piece of paper burning in a specific way in a bonfire me and my buddies had, and it did happen exactly how I dreamed it. Anyways, got a couple of stories. Be me, UK fag living in Germany with GF. Winter 23, walking my dog in forest at like 6 p.m. so sun has already set. Come to this clearing with a bench for hikers and a road to some farmhouses. See this candle light flickering like 50 m in the distance. Was windy and cold as shit, no one except me dumb enough to walk their dog. Turn off flashlight cause kinda intrigued.jpg. Candlelight comes to about 40 m then goes back to original distance. Happens a few times like it was beckoning me to follow. Shit was hovering or something, not like someone was holding it and walking back and forth. Obviously not gonna follow that shit. Walk along my usual route, still have light in sight. Light floats up into deeper woods. Be me. Greater than 9 years old. At grandma's house playing with some toy cars I had. In the back room of the house. Playing some weird game where I had them race each other and then fight. Happened to look up while playing. Look past the open door and see the dark dining room. See something yellow under the dining room table in the darkness. Realize it's a pair of yellow eyes. Eyes look around the room and all under the table. Suddenly make direct eye contact with me. Awful feeling like I'm gonna die. Begin screaming for my grandma who comes rushing past the dining room table. As soon as my grandma made it to the table the eyes shut didn't come back. Try my best to explain to my grandma what happened. Still have no idea what the hell that was. My grandma had no pets and I've never seen or had another experience like that to this day. Lived literally a few feet from a massive cemetery by a river. I could walk there from the house and be at the cemetery in 5 to 6 minutes. So it shouldn't be too shocking. The entire neighborhood told plenty of spooky stories about creepy shit. Anyway, I'm around 6 to 7, dad's in the hospital after an accident at work led him to falling back first off a 10-foot ladder with nothing to really break the fall, so suffice to say he got fucked up from it. One day my mom is asleep in her bedroom, having worked second shift the night before while grandmother watched me. Usually the hospital called if things were going good with his recovery. It's about 11 in the morning, not too hot for July, when out of desperation I praying to God that my dad lives. He wasn't a very good father in retrospect, but as a kid I didn't think or care about that. After praying I head down the hall into the kitchen to grab a juice box from the fridge, walk back into the spare room where I was watching TV and made this prayer. Turn in to see this decrepit looking creature thing in a long black cloak, with these long, bony ass fingers. Creature thing in this raspy voice says God won't grant your wishes. Out of sheer terror I bolt into my parents' room, wake my mom up, and babble to her the way a 6-year-old does about seeing something scary. We go back and there's nothing there. Mom is a devout Christian, so first thing she does is use blessed olive oil, run it over windows and doors while saying, "In Jesus' name you are not allowed in here." Still have the image of that thing in my head if I think about it enough. In later years I'm convinced that creature was from the cemetery. 2006 19th birthday in Toronto. I came face to face with some kind of non-human entity in a pub. My friends and I entered a random pub we encountered to have some drinks and food before we went to a party. My friends entered first and I went next door to a store to get cigarettes. I entered the pub, and as I got about halfway to where my friends were seated and suddenly everything in the pub went quiet and slowed down to maybe 10% normal speed, and my attention was tunnel vision focused on a guy heading towards the door I just entered through. As we passed each other no more 6 feet apart, he was looking right at me smiling. He had very pale skin, almost albino, and his teeth were all very small and sharp. The whites of his eyes were bloodshot and his eyes were a dark green-brown. He was dressed in a long dark coat and his hair was long tight braids. Everything slowed down to a point where it felt like he was staring at me smiling while he walked out the door for minutes, and as he exited the world around me snapped back into motion and sound, and I was so stunned by it I immediately asked my friends what the hell just happened and if any of them saw what I just saw. They all laughed and I was just forced to shake it off. All these years later I remember this experience like it happened yesterday and can picture the creature's face with perfect clarity. I know this thing wasn't human and I feel as if I was the only one who saw it and it knew I was observing it. I live in Fresno and have seen the fucking night crawlers on 2 occasions, but heard them fucking around with animals at least 1 other time. I lived out in the country and to get to my house you had to go past an orchard and then rows and rows of cattle grazing fields. I would bike through there and at dusk saw one bolt through the trees and out of sight, and a second time saw one hiding among a herd of cattle. My understanding / best guess is they must hang out in the blossom area because they camo well with the blossoms, and hide among the cattle because the cattle don't mind them, and who notices an extra set of legs. Then they fuck with the cattle when they know it's safe and get out. They're assholes, but I think the coyotes usually keep them away. Not really a good story, but me, 8 years old. Visiting relatives in the summer. They have a big garden with palm trees. Beyond the garden is a grove. Around sunset, in the garden with my cousin. She tells me to look at the palm tree. Giant fucking rat walking slowly on a branch. This feller was the size of a large cat. Sunset, so we could only see its silhouette. In the following days we went near the tree and could hear something jumping around on it. We ask her grandma about this. She starts talking about how these guys are kind of an urban legend in the town. Sadly she then starts drifting off due to dementia. Kinda lame, I know, but I still don't understand what exactly I saw. The closest thing we have to a giant rat in my country is the nutria, but this one had a long rat-like tail. Not a creature story but spooky nonetheless. Me and my friends visited abandoned places a lot. They look cool to take photos of, can usually find old documents like newspapers and photos. At this abandoned hospital in Manchester called Barrens Hospital. Go up to the 2nd floor and hear this tapping sound. Sound was repeating every 5 seconds on the dot. Just _water.mp3. Me and my dumb ass friends thought we should investigate. Follow the tapping thinking it's water dripping. After about 10 minutes of trying to locate the source, it stops. Pure silence. No birds, no wind, nothing, complete and utter silence. Slowly progress to where we think the water was coming from when we hear a fucking loud ass bang. So loud it made all 4 of us scream. We start pelting it towards the sound, running solely on adrenaline, and stop. We heard what sounded like running coming directly towards us. Footsteps getting louder. Feel this really cold breeze go past us, and 30 seconds later a chair that was standing upright down the hallway topples on its back. My friend said he heard faint laughing shortly after that, but was probably bullshit. I didn't hear anything so couldn't confirm. We all just stood there looking at this chair completely frozen. Me and my friends never went there again. No idea what the fuck it could have been. The footsteps we heard were so loud, the cold breeze we felt was real, and there's no explanation behind the chair falling over like that. There was hardly any wind on that day. Photo for reference, not taken by me. Not exactly paranormal, but worth posting. Me. B. Like, 8. Parents decide to move out to the country, small town Nebraska. Get an old house overlooking a little valley with a creek. Valley is overgrown with cottonwoods and prairie. Found out years later it was a game reserve. Can't be plowed or developed because floodplain. Start going to school. Talking to kids in lunch line one day. Girl asks where I live, I tell her. Oh, that's close to where the pigman lives. The pigman was a crazy lunatic who illegally lived in the valley near my house. Supposedly he kept and butchered pigs and would nail their body parts to trees to mark his property. Thought it was fake, but for years. Me and friends are playing on a minute maintenance dirt road in the valley. Find a tree. Pig leg nailed to it. Creeps us out, but we keep walking. We think we're badass, infiltrating pigman's lair. Go a mile down the road. Trees are overgrown, cottonwoods cover the road like a tunnel. Leaves shudder really loud in the wind. Find an old driveway. Massive pig head draped over a fence post near the gate. Shit was bloody, covered in flies, and had tusks. Sprint out of there. I think Pigman died a few years later because I never saw anything like this again and people stopped talking about him. Apparently he was squatting on public land, but no one could do anything about him because, well, how do you get rid of the insane half-feral guy nailing pig parts to trees? Pretty sure I found his house while hunting a few years later. Old railroad boxcar with furniture in it, illegally wired to a pole. Was full of pig bones and smelled worse than hell. A buddy of mine cleaned it out and still uses it as a hunting shed. Bet it's haunted. I was reading a book while I was in the Navy. We had these bunk beds with curtains for privacy. I was alone in my dorm with the door closed, pretty heavy metal door, and I saw the curtains moving like if someone was entering my bed. Head, arms, and ass printed on the curtains and moving in. I was alone in my dorm, sober and fully awake, reading some book with my lights on. It wasn't wind because the dorms were underwater and the AC blows from the center of the room downwards far from my bed. The ship was docked in the Mediterranean, so it couldn't be waves, they don't move the curtains like that anyways. And it wasn't someone sneaking, those metal doors are made to withstand floods and they are noisy AF when you open them. It was pretty strange. Always heard the ship was haunted because an officer hanged himself in the swimming pool near the dorms. I picked an interest in the topic a few days ago and then it happened. I stopped thinking about it and never happened to me again. But there was sailors who would never sleep alone in the dorms because they were scared of the ghost. 2004-ish, I'm 14 years old. Occasionally went out to the steakhouse in the woods with family for special occasions. On the way out, have to use the restroom, tell parents I'll catch up. Step outside once I'm done. Steakhouse was situated off the main road and in a very rural, wooded area, and it had nothing but trees around. No lights except the one at the entrance of the steakhouse. See something shuffling towards me from the darkness. Feel something is very, very off. Am slightly relieved when I see it's just an old lady, but then I become unnerved again when I notice her eyes are closed. She grabs me by the arm roughly. Asks me where the entrance is. Right here. We're at the entrance. The door is right. She lets go of me, turns around and walks back into the darkness. Chalk it off as some crazy old blind lady or something. Get to car. Anon, what were you doing? Giving a blind lady directions. I think. Dad looks at me with a weird expression. When? Inside. Tell him no, just now, at the outside entrance. Mom looks super unsettled. Anon, we watched you the whole time. You were just standing there staring out into the woods for almost a minute. There was nobody else there. MFW. Backwoods camping in a tent near Algonquin Park, Canada. Randomly wake up at the crack of dawn lying in my tent. Only 3 of us on the trip. I hear my 2 friends snoring, but hear someone walking around the campsite. Distinct flip-flop sound as they take steps. Heart racing but stayed silent for 5 minutes. Decide to open the tent and take a look. Slow steps and breaking branches heard in the distance by the time I get my footing. Find no trace of anything. Backwoods camping the next year, different location but around the same park. Randomly wake up at the crack of dawn, lying in a cabin. I hear the same sound as I did last year. Distinct flip-flop sound walking around the cabin grounds. Also hear some high-tone clinks like two beer bottles hitting each other or metal hitting metal. Tried to record it but the audio didn't capture it. No clear angle of the source of sound. Listening to the source of sound move past the cabin. We have heard monkey sounds from that area before. Previously thought maybe a group of owls or even people messing with us. Do Sasquatch have sandal tech? Both times we were pretty remote, not near any groups of people. Has anyone had something similar? I can't think that an animal would have flip-flop sounds or even something remotely close. Here's a spooky story coming from my childhood. Grow up in Orange County, Virginia. Whole area is covered with Civil War battlefields. One evening, me and little brother are dicking around in backyard. We lived right on the edge of the woods. Some guy dressed as a Civil War soldier walks up to me and my brother. He says something to the tune of, "Have you boys seen General Hayes?" We tell him no, never heard of a General Hayes in my life. Guy says thank you and walks back into the woods. Notice he's fully kitted out, has the musket and everything. We tell our dad about it, he kinda brushes it off. Months later. Reading book about Civil War battles, my dad was a huge history buff. Me being a kid, mostly reading the big colorful maps. MFW, a Brigadier General Hayes lead his brigade right where we live. MFW, learn General Hayes was kekke at the battlefield right by our house. Am I getting haunted by the fucking Civil War? Something that happened to me that involved a celebrity. I have an experience I can't explain that involved the famous deceased rapper Mac Miller. His death was ruled overdose, but the experience I can't explain involved the exact moment he died. I'll try to explain this as best as possible. I recall sitting on a couch as I stared deeply into the gaze of a feminine creature, except it was through the lens of Mac Miller and he was sitting on a couch. This gaze from this female entity choked him up like it were a stare of death. I was busy doing whatever I was doing in my environment when my vision had cut out to Mac's vision and we shared the same eyes and we stared into this female being's gaze that caused us to croak. As this happened, you could collectively hear the breath from Mac leave his lungs. It felt as if multiple people had tuned into the same moment. I made a gasping sound. Could a single stare kill someone? This happened and I thought I'd share it with /x/. Mac Miller didn't overdose as far as I'm aware of. Something killed him with its stare. It was feminine in nature and its body looked messy and like it was sloppily put together. What /x/ thought on my experience? Be me. Greater than 2015. Wake up one morning, digital clock reads 8:48 a.m. Get up, see my Uncle Steve in the kitchen of my parents' apartment. He seemed in a chill mood and he says, "Hey kid, how's it going?" Nothing strange, tell him I'm good. We shoot the shit for about an hour. He tells me some story about how something he left at our place and was over to find it. It's a box of old family photos. Tells me to keep it and that he's gotta be going, that he'll see everyone around sometime soon. My mom comes out of her and my dad's room, crying. She sobs about how Uncle Steve died early this morning. Curiously I ask what time. Says his daughter found him dead a little past 8 this morning. Add up the time and realized, I talked to a dead person 45 minutes after he passed away. I still to this day have small, odd things happen like objects move slightly or footsteps. Never could figure out where he had to go so suddenly if he was gonna haunt me occasionally. This happened a fair few years ago. Walk into bedroom. Look out the window opposite my door. My room is on the second floor and the view is directly onto my neighbor's roof. A stereotypical wendigo-like pig related is crouched over on their roof on all fours. It's just staring at me and I freeze. I don't remember anything that happened before or after this encounter, and I'm almost certain it was a dream considering I live in Australia, but the part that keeps me guessing is that it was so detailed, unlike most of my dreams. Still a terrifying memory even if it was a dream, especially since I don't think I knew what a wendigo was at the time. It's nothing particularly special, but sure. Greater than 2017. Be bicycling along a nature trail that's usually empty. It's about 7 p.m. in early September, so it's getting dark. Notice this dark shape is keeping up with me on all fours between trees. Come to an abrupt stop when I see it begin to stand up, and it has this distinct canine head, like a wolf mixed with a bit of Rottweiler. Stares at me for 5 seconds before it runs off, having its attention focused more on a rabbit. Early 90s. Upstate New York. Family cookout, all the cousins, aunts and uncles, massive gathering. It's summertime, so super nice out. In the early evening I happen to notice what looks like a homeless bum walking at a leisurely pace out of the woods behind the house and towards the party. I tell my mom, she looks at the man and immediately calls for my dad. My dad takes one look at the dude and immediately says, "Jesus Christ, get everybody in the house." I clearly remember everyone running into the house as this man approaches from the woods. Just some dirty bum with a long beard, looks to be maybe 50s but could be younger. We watch from the porch windows as the bum lifts a picnic table full of food and drinks and flips it with one hand. I clearly remember my uncle wanting to go out and fuck the dude up. He even went to open the door to go out, but my grandpa stopped him. Dude turns and makes eye contact with me through the window. Smiles. Eventually stumbles back into the woods the way he had come and disappears. Now what is so weird about all of this is that my dad was a lieutenant with the city police department. He could have had the whole department down there with one phone call. But he was terrified. My grandpa was a World War II Marine vet and my uncle was a professional boxers. These were tough dudes. And they were all afraid of this dirty old bum. Grandpa and uncle have both passed, but I asked my parents about this a couple years ago and they both claimed they don't remember it. Bullshit. Sure. Here's one that's so surreal that I refused to believe until later years when I got older and saw my share of shit. Greater than 1970s. Dad and his older brothers are fishing at the same lake by the cabin in the woods. Late night fishing, around 2 a.m. They get some fish but nothing really exciting. Try different lures, nothing. Eventually the fishing dies down, no bites whatsoever. They all get tired, and start planning to head home. Finally they realize they can hear this very low humming noise. Everything is completely silent besides the low humming noise. Dad said to me it was like the air was vibrating. Then my uncle Jose points his finger up and starts losing his shit. Dad and older brother Roberto looks up and see it too. Dad said to me that it looked like a star descending directly to them. It gets closer and finally it's hovering right above them. Dad said it looked exactly like a flying saucer. Completely black, round, and with some dim lights running around it. The humming sound gets way louder and Dad said he could feel his entire body vibrate. Uncle Roberto has a panic attack and starts throwing shit around, then passes out. This thing hovers above them for around 10 seconds more and then shoots up the sky in a split second and the shockwave almost capsized their boat. Humming sounds stop and they head home covered in piss. I never believed this story, he told it to me only twice and I was skeptical as fuck. Only started believing it when I asked my uncle Jose about it and he said you should ask your uncle Roberto about it, and when I did, he got pale as milk and immediately changed the subject. Then later at private warned me to never mention it again in his presence.